We on? Oh, and welcome to 2024. Couple of things today. Um, Late last year, I asked people to send me comments, and I've got one email from Lexi who said that. Well, she sent me an email, it's like 12 and a half pages long, saying that I ramble on too much and I need to get to the point. So, point taken, I'll move on. Thank you, Lexi. Um, yeah, 12 and a half pages to not ramble on. Okay. Anyway, I've got a response letter back from the NDIA regarding the data breach that I reported on last year. Um, the letter I got back was a generic letter. It was like more like a copy and paste about the privacy and following guidelines and the NDIA staff doing the best and blah blah blah. It said nothing. It just referred back to the policies and procedures and the privacy policy and um, yeah. So there's not much to report on there, but I wasn't impressed with the response letter. So I'll send another letter back, um, getting more clarification on that. Also, late last year, I was on George Telopoulos, who's on the Independent Advisory Council for the NDIA. Now, I've seen Dr. George Telopoulos with the Summer Foundation podcast a few times, um, interviewing senior management at the NDIA and Bill Shorten. Anyway, in his LinkedIn profile in the last year, um, apparently Bill Shorten wanted to bring out a national register of independent support workers and to make sure they have the right qualifications. And George Telopoulos was against it. And he put the question out there in his LinkedIn account of that the Bill Shorten was going to try and introduce this to make sure people, support workers, are trained. And George Telopoulos said no. So he put the question out there. This is what Bill Shorten's going to do. What do you think? Instead of leaving it there, which I thought he should have done, he put in, it takes away our rights to choose, which I totally disagree with. It doesn't take our right away to choose. We can choose any support worker that we want. Just that I think along the lines of Bill Shorten, I think this is a great idea that allowing anyone with an ABN number to become a support worker is not a good idea. There's no checks and balances. They're not required to have a police and children's check. They're not required to have any certification. Unlike those support workers who work for a service provider, they have to do courses and ongoing training, CPR, first aid, handling medication, food preparation, contaminated sheets, blankets, clothes, how to dispose of it, how it's cleaned properly, using PPEs, personal protection equipment. All this was overlooked by George Telopoulos, and I thought that was a huge mistake. I totally disagree with him. On one of his comments, he said people don't need a certification to chop up carrots. Well, support workers who work for a service provider are required to do a food handling course, where they talk about storage, cross contamination, handling food, washing your hands correctly. Also, there was a comment in there about you don't need qualifications to change the sheets on the bed, to make a bed. Again, I disagree. how does an independent support worker with no qualifications or no experience, who's just got an ABN number from the internet, it takes 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes to get an ABN number, then you can turn around and be a support worker and earn $70 an hour. What do you do with contaminated sheets and blankets or clothes? How are they cleaned? How are they disposed of? What's the correct way to dispose of them? Do you wear personal protection equipment? All these things are overlooked by George Telopoulos, and he's on the IAC. And I couldn't disagree with George Telopoulos. And I totally disagree with him, 100%. He's, in my opinion, he's totally wrong. Any twit who has computer skills can go online, get an ABN number, turn around and be a support worker. So everyone just thinks that support workers go out and they take people shopping, or they take them for a cup of coffee, or they take them to the movies. No. In some cases, yes. Not every case. There's personal care issues for clients. There's medication, there's medical issues. And you want someone untrained, unqualified person to look after people with high needs? I think Bill Shorten's on the right track. I think we do need to have a national register, and every support worker, independent support worker, should have at least a Cert 3 in disability services, maybe a Cert 4. I've been using service providers for decades, and I know for a fact that all the support workers who work for a service provider, they have first aid training. They do that yearly. They do CPR training yearly. They're trained on handling medications, because it's not just like giving people 2 aspirin and put them to bed. That could be opiates. There could be medication to stop epilepsy. It could be anything. And you're getting someone who doesn't know what they're handling, passing out medication? No. I mean, they're absolutely stupid comments by George Telopoulos. How is that interfering in your right to choose? You can choose whoever you want and suitably qualified independent support workers. If they're not trained, they don't have an experience, then they shouldn't be allowed to be support workers. Every service provider is required to have a policies and procedures manual, what to do in emergencies, how to make complaints, how to create and write up reports, personal care, medications. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. But the service providers are required to have all this in their policy and procedures manual. They require all their support staff to do this ongoing training yearly or every 2 years. George Telopoulos is supposed to be a doctor of psychology. I don't know, for such a so-called smart person, how short-sighted is that? Ensuring somebody has the correct qualifications does not remove your right to choose who you want to be as a support worker. That was a loaded question he asked. He should have just asked the question. Bill Shorten's planning to have all independent support workers have certain qualifications and be on a national register, have the correct insurances, policies and procedures, then you can choose who you want. You should have just asked that question. Do you agree with it? not have a loaded question of, I don't agree because it takes our right to choose away, and you don't need qualifications to cut up carrots and make beds. I reported on a young woman last year in Victoria whose parents could no longer look after her, so she moved into a supported independent living house. Her family members went there. Her bed was soiled. Some of her clothes in the hamper was soiled. There was medications on the floor. Most of her clothes were covered with fungus. She was left in a bath by herself when she suffers epilepsy. They left the door open so anyone could enter her room. And that place was closed down. And so it should. Do you want untrained independent support workers doing the same thing, making the same mistakes? I don't. I wrote Bill Shorten a letter yesterday supporting the idea. I think it's great to make sure every independent support worker has the right insurances, policies and procedures manuals on emergencies, writing reports, making complaints, how their clients make complaints, first aid, CPR. The list just goes on and on and on. And I agree with Bill Shorten. This should be forced onto all independent support workers. Scaremongering by George Teleporis is not a good idea. There were so many comments after he's in that LinkedIn when he raised that end of last year. People were outraged. Oh, they can't take our right to choose. We can choose anyone we want. When there's so much misinformation regarding the NDIS, even from people who've been working in the field for years. It's just wrong. And I expect better from our so-called representatives on the IAC. Shame. Absolutely shameful that was. I'm going to contact George Teleporis and see if we'll come onto this channel and do an interview and give his side of the argument. I just think it was a poor form. Just to put the question out the way he did, scaremongering, doesn't help anyone. You have the right to choose whoever you want to be as a support worker, so long as they're suitably qualified, so long as they have the appropriate training and the insurances. And it's got to stop. Now, anyone with an ABN number being an independent support worker, it's dangerous. Bill Shorten, as the Minister of the NDIA and the NDIA senior management, they have a duty of care to all their clients to ensure that anyone working for them does not put them in harm. They have that duty of care. And if they don't do this, have this national register of independent support workers and make sure they're licensed, not licensed, but have insurances and correct training, qualifications, then in my opinion, they're breaching their duty of care. And I've also seen that some people have a friend of a friend being a support worker because they wanted to take them to a concert. Well, the NDIA do not allow NDIA participants to employ families and friends because there's a conflict of interest. It's always been that way and it should always be that way. That's there for a reason. Anyway, um, yeah, I'm very disappointed, George Teleporus. You know, out of everyone on the IAC, I've heard of one person prior to me finding out the IAC actually exists. And I had to jog my memory for that one. But everyone else, I've never heard of. There's two people there. I've got more qualifications and more experience than those people on the as the our representatives to the IAC. How in the hell did they get there? What's the process to get onto the IAC? Do they have open applications where anyone can apply? Then they go through and select the appropriate people, or is it just through recommendations? I'll be clarifying that in the next couple of days. Because if they are appointed through recommendations or through the minister, then they're not our representatives. They're just political appointments. I think we as participants of the NDIA, I think it's up to us to choose who we want on the IAC, not who we're told that, you know, they're the people we have to have. You can't contact any of them. You can only contact the IAC in general. There's not one person on the IAC that's given out an email address where people can write to them. Not one out of the 12. Not one. But they're our representatives, or so-called representatives. I sent the chairperson of the IAC, that Leah Van Peebles, I've sent her 4 requests for an interview in the last 3 months. And I know we're coming up, had Christmas, just got over Christmas and the New Year. Hopefully she'll reach out and give me that interview. Anyway, I don't know if there's anyone in chat. No comments. Yeah, anyway, I'll get everyone to think about it, what I just said. Should anyone be allowed to go online, get an ABN number, then turn around and be a support worker with no qualifications, no experience? I had one person contact me end of last year crying because their child, who has an intellectual disability, was supposed to go out with a support worker. 2 turned up, not 1, 2. They then took the client to McDonald's where they gave him $20 and they just sat back drinking coffee and having a cigarette while this person ate so much they became ill. What qualifications do they have? We've got to look at it. We've got to examine all these things. We just can't allow anyone. They're not even required to have a police or children's check. All they're required to have is an ABN number. It's wrong. You know, people can rot the system. They could take advantage of the client. I'm not saying all independent support workers are like that, but I'm saying there are some. And we need to protect ourselves. And the only way we can do that is to ensure that they have the right qualifications or a lot of experience working in the field. not just doing an online application for an ABN. Someone, you know, who works part-time, they get like $25 an hour. Get an ABN number, become a support worker, and get $70 an hour. That's a great way to go. I know we're crying out for support workers, but still, we need to protect ourselves, and we rely on the minister and the NDIA board and the IAC. We rely on them to help protect us. And I've never heard of anyone in the IAC or the NDIA going out in the community and asking people what they think, how they can improve things. Anyway, that's about all I've got to say on that. But yeah, Bill Shorten, please do it. You're not removing our rights to choose. Just making sure that the people that we choose from have the right qualifications. That's all. Anyway, I'm going to reach out to the IAC today, find out more about it, and I'll let you know how I go. I won't be available next week. I'm doing online training. As some of you may be aware, I interviewed Judy Harper last year from the Justice Advocacy Service. I was actually so impressed with Judy. I'm now going to volunteer for the JAS. So I've got to do some online training next week, then do some buddy shifts until I'm comfortable to where I can help people. The JAS, the Justice Advocacy Service, they help people with disabilities through the judicial system, including in and out of prisons. So, I was so impressed with Judy Harper. I decided just to volunteer, give up my time to help people. Anyway, we might end it there, Chris. There's no comments.
No comments. Did you want to talk about the data breach?
I did.
Oh, you've already.
I did the data breach. I spoke about Lexi's comment about me rambling on too much. Then I went on about the data breach, the letter we got yesterday. I got yesterday. It was just more like a copy and paste, a generic letter that they send out. But I need to get some more clarification on some of the stuff. It was very generic, non-specific. I wasn't happy about it, but I will be contacting them and getting more information, and I'll pass that on when I have it. All right. Okay, we might end that there. Thanks to everyone listening. Please come to my YouTube channel and subscribe and hit the notifications bell and select all notifications. So every time I go live, you'll get a notification. You can come and have a watch and have a listen. Hopefully we'll give people information that can help them through the NDIA process and general information on the DSP and other items we'll be talking about over the next 12 months. All right. Okay. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone.